What's our worst case scenario?
A strike that goes all the way through the World Cup. And I'm not going to say that's likely, but it's from everything I've heard about the state of the negotiations, not outside of the realm of possibility that we get some form of a player strike.
Hello, welcome to the United Soccer Lounge. My name is Riley James. We're going to jump right into this thing with John Morrissey of USLTactics.com and Backfield. We are talking labor negotiations between USL and the USLPA. Now, I've obtained quotes from the executive director of the Players Association, as well as quotes from anonymous players, both in Championship and League One. We'll talk about all that with John Morrissey in just a moment. If you're not subscribed to the channel, this is kind of work that we do to make sure to be able to stay informed with everything we got going on in USL. But that'll do it for us. Thank you so much for watching. And here's John Morrissey on the labor negotiations in USL. Please welcome to the show the smartest man in all of USL, writer for USLTactics.com, and Backfield, co-host and contributor to the USL show. And like I said, he is the smartest man in any of these leagues that we work in. Please welcome back to the show, John Morrissey. John, it's been a while, man. How are you?
Doing really well. Happy to be back. It really is that time of year where we get together and do this again. So I'm excited.
You're going to talk for about 4 hours tonight. It's going to be great.
We love to see it.
Like you said, it's truly that time of year. And we got a lot of things to get to. If you did not watch our playoff preview earlier in the week, it's available right now on this very same YouTube channel. Now, today, you and I are talking about something a little less fun. The United Soccer League and USL Players Association are negotiating a brand new collective bargaining agreement, with the current one set to expire in 2025. The USLPA has made it very clear to me that they are looking for three main things. That is, mandated health care for all of its players by all of its clubs, fair compensation, and safe working conditions. And I stress the verbiage there. Safe working conditions is different than safe working environments. And we've seen that with other leagues in this country. We are talking strictly about player safety and maintaining health through a season. And you'll see a quote in just a few moments about athletic trainers and having them on staff full time. That is what I mean by safe working conditions. So I want to be able to stress that. I've obtained a quote from the executive director of the Players Association, Connor Tobin, and it reads like this. Players have been clear this league cannot call itself professional without professional standards. That means healthcare, safe working conditions, and fair compensation. Too many players are being asked to perform like professionals without being treated like professionals. That has to change. The league's success depends on its players, and right now the players are asking for the bare minimum, a system that values their safety and their contribution. With USL Championship playoffs about to start, fans will see the best of the league on the field. Our work is to make sure that the same level of professionalism exists off the field too. Professional soccer cannot succeed without professional standards. So, lot to unpack there. We'll talk about all of those things. But John, I have to ask, how did we get here?
I think the interesting thing throughout this whole situation is the USL loves to put itself out there as a league that is leading the growth of the sport in the United States. And they're doing that in a couple ways. It's expansion teams that you constantly see announcements for, honestly, whether they're going to come to fruition or not. It's that push towards Division One. It's the announcement of Pro Rel, even though behind the scenes there weren't actually concrete plans for what Pro Rel was going to mean. The USL wants to be out there and say, we are doing what we're doing to push this sport forward. And if you're a player who is living, who is the product at the end of the day, you see that and then you look at the take-home salary that you're coming with, and those ideas don't mesh together. Like you take a look at League One, for instance. The minimum monthly salary for a player is only $2,200. Up to half of that could be housing and health insurance. Suddenly, you're looking at take-home pay for 10 months of work that's roughly $20,000. I know housing can be provided for, but you can't live on that anywhere in this country. And so, if you're a player, the time is now, while the league wants to be taking off with this explosive growth, to say, hey, we need to be treated fairly. if you're going to rely on us to make these gains at the top end, you need to pay the players properly, support the players properly, give them health care, give them everything else that we're going to be discussing.
Now, I've obtained player quotes. Obviously, these are going to remain anonymous, but we'll tell you kind of the situation that they're in. This is from a League One player, since we've talked about League One probably the most so far. I believe it's time players received basic health care. This isn't just about championship players either. It affects everyone in the USL umbrella. And to be clear, I don't want people thinking players are being ungrateful because I'm definitely not. From what I've heard, a lot of championship players have felt disrespected and unheard at the bargaining table. And this move is really just a step forward to make sure those concerns are finally addressed. This one from a USL Championship player in the Eastern Conference. Feels a little disrespectful that the league doesn't see our players as good enough to be paid. There are so many things that would be fair that we should be able to agree on. One of which is that every club should be able to have access to two athletic trainers full time. I think that's the bare minimum. John, when you hear these, what do you make of these two quotes?
Yeah, that athletic trainer quote I think is really interesting, given some of what we saw back in the spring with the big piece from The Athletic about Loudoun United. And it highlighted the fact, which has been contested by some parties since then, I should note, but that players had to do their own laundry. They didn't have a professional trainer on the staff, not even one, and that the conditions weren't up to par. And I think you hear about those things. I know there are other clubs that really lack that infrastructure as well that I've talked to players about. It doesn't make it a safe environment to be able to play. Like if you're a professional athlete, your health is everything. Your body is your asset. It is what is going out there on the field and making it all possible. If you don't have trainers, that's at risk. If you don't have proper health insurance to protect against an injury, likewise, the thing you are trying to do to earn a livelihood could go away in an instant if you take a wrong step and your ankle moves in a bad direction. And so when you hear that perspective from the players that are really trying to make the point that the league isn't supporting them as they should be, it's hard as someone who tries to be neutral and tries to understand both sides not to be sympathetic to that cause.
You mentioned that all of these clubs are acting and running their business at a loss. The players are demanding these things. There is a contention point in these talks where the clubs don't necessarily have the money and the players don't have the patience or the ability to be able to do a lot of these things. I mean, how does this ever get resolved? Because it just seems like we can't have both.
I think the thing that is the light at the end of the tunnel is that USL players aren't getting paid that much in the first place. So if there's a pay raise, yes, it affects the bottom line even further, but it's not as if for the multimillionaires that own these teams, it's going to be the thing that ruins them entirely. And I think if you are on the ownership side, for so long, the game plan has been get to this moment in 2026 where the World Cup is coming to the United States. We've got the Olympics shortly thereafter. Now we're trying to bring eyeballs in with D1 and Pro Rel. If we can get to this moment, that will start the pathway to profitability. We really think we can start to make more money at the gates, bring in extra sponsor revenue. That's where the two ideas collide, right? You've got that extra money to be able to invest in players on top of everything else. It's almost unfortunate that the timing of the CBA doesn't align perfectly with when the USL really thinks it's going to take off. Now, you can also point to these ideas and say, there's no guarantee that Messi playing in front of 90,000 fans at an NFL stadium is going to make someone in Corpus Christi show up next season. And so I'm curious to see what is the contingency if it doesn't go right. But for now, I think if you're an owner, the expedient decision would be to say, we can't have a strike in this utterly crucial year. We're going to take on a little bit more of a financial load. We're going to trust that this growth is going to come. And if you don't believe that the USL is going to be better off playing, if you don't believe in that long-term vision and the importance of 2026, I don't really know what you're doing owning a team. That's been the argument for so long. So invest to make that happen.
Yeah. John, you're asking billionaires to be, or multimillionaires in this case, to be reasonable, which is, it's. I've seen other sports in the United States. I've seen how these things go, and it's not always the ending that we want. But you make a great point, and I want to be able to talk about that. 2020. We'll talk about it more in full for a second, but 2026 is a massive time for American soccer. We talk about it all the time on this show. I'm sure a lot of other shows across the country do the same thing, but 2027's like really the year they're going to benefit fully. You have your first division, you're going to have big stadiums and big teams and hopefully some big name players, and they have to be attracted to the product to want to come, right? That you have to make yourselves a marketable league to be able to get players and poach players from Major League Soccer to come play in the first division. So, I want to read this last quote. It's from a USL Championship player in the Western Conference. It is difficult to say what the right thing is to do. I hope for no drama and that the league and PA find the best solution for all. Player standards do need to improve, and the USL Super League is ahead of the USL Championship by a good margin. Now, when I heard that, when that was given to me as a quote, I was blown away. And I guess that's a massive credit to Amanda Vandervoort in the USL Super League, the Gamebridge Super League, I guess, for sponsorship reasons. Uh, what do you think when you hear that the Super League is doing so much better than the Championship?
Well, I think that reflects very well on the what now 9 clubs that are participating in the Super League, right?
Yeah.
The assignment when that league applied to be a first division was to actually make use of the designation, put in the resources, support these players in a way that was befitting of that label. I don't think anybody really thought that the Super League was going to be competing with the NWSL in a like bidding war for players in that a competition for fan interest. But the goal was always to be supportive, be a place where an NWSL club could say, "Hey, we can loan a player here, and it's going to be a legitimate environment." It could be a place where American internationals could come home, be in the United States, and find a livable salary. If the Super League is able to do that, and USL on the men's side is saying we want to have a D1, but oh wait, we're not going to give those same salaries that we're repeating on the women's side. To me, I don't see how those ideas square. And I think that's a meaningful data point that the players union should be bringing to the table in these negotiations, if that is something that you can show on paper.
You mentioned that being a point for the Players Association to look at the women's league. This is what they're doing. How can we replicate that here? That's the same umbrella. It's the same league office in Tampa. At what point is that like actual critical pressure on the league?
I mean, I think it has to be, right? When the Super League was coming about, I think people were worried about the opposite scenario happening, that the Super
Yeah.
League wasn't going to be supported in the same way and wasn't going to have those salaries. I think it's awesome that it's clearly been successful so far, but that has to cut both ways now. And I keep hammering home the same point, right? The USL wants to grow. The USL wants to be on that global platform. They talk about it constantly. They're successfully doing it on the women's side. I don't understand how they can brook this idea of we're not gonna spend in the same way, support the players in the same way when again they are the product.
John, thank you so much for coming to hang out with us. Two more things. We'll get you out of here on this. Thank you so much for spending the week with us here preparing for the USL Championship and League One playoffs. You talked at the very beginning of this as USL positioning themselves into the future of American soccer. And we talked about the unfortunate timing of these labor negotiations with the CBA. How does how does this fit into their plan? Because they knew this was happening. We've known this was coming.
I mean, I think I don't want to say they overlooked it because there are very smart people at the league office. But I think they probably assumed this was going to be an easier negotiation than it's ended up being. I think they thought that the players would maybe look favorably on this idea of, okay, maybe eat 3 more seasons of somewhat substandard conditions and then we're going to hit the gravy train. Then it's pro rel, then it's a media deal renegotiation, which in and of itself is a little bit fictitious, given that revenue sharing doesn't really exist. Like that money doesn't trickle down to the clubs in a meaningful way. But I think it would certainly be part of the league's argument of let's go for one more deal and then maybe we can start to get these gains. Maybe when D1 happens, we can really negotiate up and start to see the improvement because we've got the infrastructure. And the players, from everything I understand, have rightly decided, hey, we want to take a stand. If this is going to happen, our rights, our ability to live is going to be a precondition for that happening. But yeah, you have to wonder how it got this thorny in the first place.
Is there a possible band-aid they can throw on this thing to get through just this run of time? Is a short-term agreement in the realm of possibility?
My gut feeling is that the players wouldn't be in favor of that unless it was a really sweet deal. And I think it helps both parties if they can agree to something longer term. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it is such an important 4 to 5 year span of growth for the league. If they have to stop in the middle of it and do this entire thing again, I don't really think that helps anybody. And so if you can iron it out now, that has to be the priority.
What's our worst case scenario?
A strike that goes all the way through the World Cup. And I'm not going to say that's likely, but it's from everything I've heard about the state of the negotiations, not outside of the realm of possibility that we get some form of a player strike.
Then, I mean, it would be detrimental uh, to have that, and obviously we've seen that in other sports. And the most significant recent strike in memory is when they canceled the World Series in the 90s, and that put baseball back a long way. And baseball had the history to be able to survive that. I'm not sure USL maybe does. You know, they don't have 100+ years of good standing with its fans to be able to use up some of that capital. But John, thank you so much for coming and hang out with us. We'll be watching this through the postseason, and best of luck for the hours and hours that you're talking today.
Thank you very much.
That will do it for us. Thank you so much for watching the show. I'm at Riley James IAC on Instagram and X. The parent company is at goals.tv on Instagram, at goals_TV on X. The Instagram account for this show is at USL on Goals, and many great creators making wonderful content about the world of soccer and everything in it on goals.tv. Enjoy the USL Championship and League One playoffs. We'll be back with a regular show next week. For John Morrissey, I'm Riley James. If anyone cares, we'll see you again next week.